Hello, everyone. It is Friday here at Locked On Canadiens, and that means it is the mailbag day. We have questions about, again, trading for Pierre-Luc Dubois, trading Brendan Gallagher and Joel Armia, and what's the ultimate ice cream cone? All that and more inside today's Locked On Canadiens.
Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 662 of Locked On Canadiens, your only 100% pantsless Montreal Canadiens podcast in the summer. I am
50%. Speak for yourself.
We will leave. I'm not editing any of this. This is all staying in. I am one of your hosts. I am Scott Metla, and I'm joined as always by the active stick, Laura Saba. As you can tell, we are very much back on our bull-ish right now. It is Friday. That means it is the Friday mailbag. Laura, we got so many questions, and only a few are about trading for Pierre-Luc Dubois this time. So we are down on our numbers. We got to pump those back up because content. How are you doing going into this weekend?
I'm excited with all of the questions that we got. The listeners are giving us a lot to debate and talk about, and we really appreciate that. And we're excited because next week kicks off our guest series, and we're going to invite as many people as possible. And we think we've got something special lined up for the next couple weeks, and I promise you will not be disappointed. We want to talk to members of the Habs community. We're also going to talk to fans of rival teams. We're going to talk to some more prospect experts now that the Canadiens have drafted. And we're also going to bring on some of our favorite people, Habs analysts and things like that. We're working on so much stuff we're going to be going through, including the rookie tournament and then, World Juniors or the other way around. We're not going to have a shortage of content, but we will be down to 3 days a week.
Yes. So we will be episodes in your inbox Monday, Wednesday, and Friday every single week. We will have breaking news if Kent Hughes decides to ruin our summer vacation. Kent, we are watching you. Here, buddy. We are watching you.
He's going to choose every single day that we've already recorded an episode. He's going to do something big. So then we have to do like another bonus episode when we're not supposed to.
It is my anniversary this weekend, which then means he's going to do something on Saturday, the
PLD.
day of my anniversary. It's going to be PLD for me on our anniversary. Anyways, we're going to jump right in the mailbag. We have so many questions. As always, if you want to send us your questions at LO_Canadiens, LockedOnCanadiens@gmail.com. Don't be a jerk in the YouTube comments. And Laura, kick us off. What do we have in there today?
So we've got a friend of ours who asked on Instagram. So you can also send us questions on Instagram if you like. And that's our friend Carm, who we brought up on the show before. Hey guys, I figured I'd send my mailbag question to both of you this time. I wanted your opinion on this thought. Am I the only one that's a bit bothered by the fact that PLD asked for trades from both teams that he played for? It kind of seems like he's quick to quit. And this is a sentiment that not only Carm has told us, it's come up in our YouTube comments a little bit. I've seen some conversations on Reddit about that as well. So Scott, what are your thoughts on PLD asking for trades from both teams that he's been on so far?
I think I'm not shocked that he asked for trades out of either situation because from discussions we've had off air with various people around the league, Columbus was a mess at the time that he wanted to leave. He got to go to Winnipeg to be in the same organization as his father, and the fit seemed to be there. And now we've seen Winnipeg as a whole is very clearly just this toxic mess of a room with various names popping up repeatedly. And I'm not shocked that he wants to leave because if anyone is paying attention, Winnipeg seems like a team that is going to be trending downward rapidly soon, and he's entering his prime. You don't want to be the captain of the sinking ship. Not that he's the captain, but you don't want to be one of the main people driving a sinking ship. You want to get the most out of your best years and cash in. And I think that's kind of where this is coming from. He sees the writing on the wall. He's not a stupid person at all. And I think he sees that, hey, this seems like a real bad situation that I should probably get myself out of before it damages my value overall too.
I think you can see this both ways. Like I understand why people do think that because he has asked for trades, but at the same time, if you look at, if you kind of look at the way that you can handle a toxic situation is you just kind of quietly sort of deal with it and it hurts you, or you try to take charge of your own career. And so sometimes you can see this as like him being assertive, like it's no longer the old way of doing hockey where everybody's supposed to be quiet and not, not rock the boat. Like you can see this as a positive if you kind of look at the context of the situation and who was the coach and what the room was like and everything that you're hearing. Obviously we can't confirm anything that we've heard. If we could, we would report it, but there seems to be a toxic atmosphere in the Winnipeg Jets locker room, and there seemed to be at the time a toxic atmosphere in the Columbus Blue Jackets locker room as well. We've got two questions from two different people, but they're both about the same thing. So the first one is from Chris B. How do we trade Gallagher? Serious question. Third liners can't make $6 million, just like goalies can't make $10 million. And another one from C Dog. Mailbag question. Gallagher is making $6.5 million and looking like he'll be on the third line, which is too expensive for that role. Do you think any team would take a chance on him? Would the Jets maybe be interested in a Dvorak Gallagher plus, say, a third-round pick for Dubois? That would give us the cap space to sign Dubois and Doc, and the Jets have $14.5 million in cap space and have 17 players already signed. So these two questions are both kind of focused on, is there a market for Gallagher and should he be traded?
There's always a market for players like Brendan Gallagher. Guys who work hard get paid in the NHL, and Brendan Gallagher works harder than anyone. I'm also not on the trade him train. I get the thought process that it looks like he's going to be on the third line, and I don't think he's going to be on the third line for long because we don't know who's going to be on the second line right now. We know roughly who might be on the first line. And you know what? You can probably put Brendan Gallagher on the first line and have him play off wing or move Cole around. It'll probably be fine. He's a heart and soul guy that, trading him, we talk about how tough decisions Kent Hughes has had to make. Trading a fan favorite like Brendan Gallagher is tough, especially with Pierre-Luc Dubois kind of being up in the air with this fan base right now. I get the idea of doing it, and I think there would be a market for him immediately. A team like Calgary, who needs, a winger now that they're likely to lose Tkachuk, and they already lost Johnny Gaudreau. Winnipeg would probably love a player like Brendan Gallagher. He fits what that coaching staff wants. Every team would take a guy who hustles every shift, can score 20 to 25 goals, loves to get in front of the net and everything. He does all those little things right, but I also think that's why Martin St. Louis is going to want him around still, because Gallagher just does the things that, he needs to. He gets it, and it makes sense. I do understand the idea of wanting to trade him to create that cap space, but I do not think he is high on that priority list right now for Kent Hughes to trade.
That's exactly it. I agree with you. And also, we don't know how he's going to be after he recovers from his injury, right? So he's had this off season to kind of work on that and rest. And maybe he comes into camp and he blows people away and he moves up to the second line.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. It's like he's recovering from God only knows what this past year. Hip, hand, back, face, everything. Like, dude's a busted up mess after this last season. He played through it all, smartly or wrongly there, but I wouldn't write him off just yet. I think we're going to see a reinvigorated Brendan Gallagher this year. And I know, yes, he's a little bit older now than he was, but he's still Brendan Gallagher. He's still got all the metrics to back him up. We have so many more mailbag questions, and we're going to get into all those coming up in one moment. But first, today's show is brought to you by our friends at betonline.net. And they are the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs. Find all your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. Major League Baseball is in full swing. The NFL season is looming in the background. College football is looming. There's always MMA, boxing, and golf. And BetOnline is your top resource for all your wagering info, live in-game betting, scores, podcast news, whatever. So go check out BetOnline today or use your mobile device to learn more about the action happening. BetOnline, where the game starts. We are back with our Friday mailbag. As always, you can tweet us at @LO_Canadiens. Send us emails at lockedoncanadiens@gmail.com. Drop a comment on YouTube. Just, abide by the rules, be nice, play nice in the sandbox and everything. Laura, what else is in our mailbag today?
We've got one from our good friend Victor Maxwell. Mailbag question. Pierre-Luc Dubois for Primo, Hoffman, Dvorak, and a second round pick.
I mean, I would do that in a heartbeat. I'm not sure Winnipeg would. I think no matter what, I think Dvorak is a piece in this, and I think at least a second round pick is likely a piece in this. I imagine there was another prospect going the other way still. I don't think it's going to be a Goulet. I don't think it's going to be a Slafkovsky or anything like that. But I think you're going to have to give to get. And it might be Caden Primo. I wouldn't recommend that just because of the goaltending situation, and giving up on young goalies never seems like a good idea. But looking at that trade, it's, hey, yeah, we're shedding a lot of cap and getting a guy back, and the other team is taking on a lot of cap for players that we don't necessarily need. Just because we say yes, because we are on one side of the fence, doesn't mean the Jets are going to. I can't help but think this trade's going to be the opposite of the Laine Dubois swap originally, and it's going to be a lot of pieces. It might involve another team. It's going to be weirdly complicated, and now that I've said that, it's going to be a straight swap and not complicated at all, and I will hear about it on Twitter, so.
Don't yell at Scott. A couple of questions from listener Mo. Hey guys, longtime listener. Hi. Had a few questions, please. So I'm going to start with the second question. Does it make sense to pursue Pierre-Luc Dubois if Bedard is the focus? I can't see it being sustainable to have PLD and Bedard and Doc and Suzuki. It wouldn't make sense. And we also have Evans and Beck. That's question question 2 that I'm asking as the first question because it's related to the previous question. I personally think that we in this fan base we've talked a lot about getting PLD, but all of this is like you kind of have to think about it. When you have too many young good players, at some point you're going to have to let go of them, and the time that you want that to be is after you win the Stanley Cup, like the LA Kings did, like the Chicago Blackhawks did. Now, you don't have to emulate those franchises in a lot of things, but that's essentially what happens when you have a team that wins while young, when you have a lot of really young good players. There's two things about this one. Is one, we still haven't guaranteed that we're getting Pierre-Luc Dubois, and two, there's absolutely no guarantee that the Montreal Canadiens are going to get Bedard. Like, it looks like they, based on a lot of things, which we will talk about in next week's podcast, because I wanted to bring up some of the interviews and things like that I've been listening on with our guests. But it seems like they're doing a 2 to 3 year tank, essentially, but not necessarily like an outright blatant tank, but more of a, we're going to accept being bad for a couple of years in order to get higher draft picks. But the young players are still going to be developed. So for me, I don't know if like either way, you can't guarantee PLD and you can't guarantee Bedard. So what do you do in this case?
I still think you go for PLD because, like you said, you're not guaranteed Bedard, and Chicago literally burnt their team to the ground. The Sharks hired David Quinn. Like, there's competition for teams that are going to be bad this year. I think the Canadiens are going to draft inside the top 5 to 7 unless something drastic changes here, which is fine. They got the first overall pick. They had another pick. They have more picks in this draft too. I think they can continue to rebuild whether or not they get Connor Bedard. Getting Connor Bedard speeds things up exponentially. Do not get me wrong. If they get Connor Bedard, I'm going to tap dance. That's great. However, there's no guarantees at this, and you know what Pierre-Luc Dubois is. He's likely a high-end second-line center, potential 1B to Nick Suzuki's 1A, 1B kind of situation here. We don't know what Doc is, and we don't know what Beck's ceiling is. We know Jake Evans kind of caps out as a bottom 6 center here. You can never have too many good players when you're trying to win the Stanley Cup. You deal with the fallout afterwards, like you said. Like the Kings basically had to burn it to the ground. Chicago is currently burning it to the ground because they had to pay for all these guys who won them the cup. Tampa is somehow still dancing around the cap. I don't understand how. You don't want to be Vegas, though, where you get desperate and just make big trades and sign people for things you can't afford. But I still say, what's the harm in having Suzuki and PLD and Bedard and Doc and Evans? Sure, you might have to move some guys to the wing or this or that, or you trade them in the future, but that's a future problem. I'd rather have too many good players at once than be scrambling to try and find the next savior in the draft and hope for the best, honestly.
So Mo has 2 more questions. What kind of return would you expect for Drouin, Anderson, Hoffman, and Dvorak? And also, what is a realistic scenario for our future as a franchise?
Drouin, Hoffman, I wouldn't expect a ton. I also don't think they're going to trade Drouin, at least not at before the deadline this year. They may trade him at the deadline to a team there. Hoffman, if you can just get him off the cap and you get any kind of pick or like middling prospect back, you're doing found money. Like we talked about with Christian Dvorak the other day, I think there's value there for a team that sees, hey, he got injured and had a very strong second half of the season. And Josh Anderson, I think, is someone that a team will give up a good chunk for just because of his unique playing style and the way that he's built. He's everything an old school GM looks for in a player. If you can find an old school GM who's going to look at that and go, he's fast, he's big, he's menacing, all that other stuff, they will give you the sun and the moon for him. So you got to find the right target for that. Again, a team like Calgary that lost a bunch of pieces this offseason is going to lose some bite with Matthew Tkachuk leaving, may very well love a player like Josh Anderson. Sorry to our friends at the Scorch Stack. At least he's handsome. So if I'm ranking a tier on this, Anderson's your most valuable, then Dvorak, then probably Drouin, and then Mike Hoffman. Like I said, now that we have sat down to record this, everything's going to break loose this weekend, and we'll probably render this out of date. So that's just our jinx.
So we've got one more question, I think, in this segment, and that is from listener Bill V, who is a new listener. And thank you for all the nice things that you said in your email. And the question is, I know the Habs don't have a lot of money left under the cap, but if they free up some money via trade like they did with Petrie, can you see them supplementing their roster by going after a player or two that could make a difference? I see Strawman is still available, but more realistically, a player like Will Butcher or Chris Russell to bring a veteran presence on defense to help fill a void in experience. I would also love to see them get some decent professional tryout players on training camp, veteran types, to see if they can help out at all. What are your thoughts?
My thought is they got to move people out first. And there's too much smoke around PK Subban to Montreal that, like, I can see it on a reduced deal. You bring him back for 2 years, max, maybe 3, depending on the price. And you have a guy that, loves the city. Fans love him. And he fits that veteran mentorship role for some of these younger guys who play with instinct and with aggression like Martin St. Louis wants. I'm not sold on a piece like Chris Russell because that feels like just going the David Savard route again. And this team wants to modernize. And it's hard to say. There's so much out there that we don't know what's going to happen yet. And we're due for one of those prizes like Michael Furlick coming in on a PTO or Thomas Fleischman and then getting a contract out of that. As we get closer to camp, depending on who's out there in free agency, I think we'll see something, but I wouldn't expect too much, at least not right now. We're entering the doldrums. There's like maybe a week of transactions left until everyone gets really bored and goes away till the end of August. We do have plenty of more mailbag questions coming up. Remember, if you want to send them to us at LO_Canadiens, LockedOnCanadiens@gmail.com. We're going to dive into the rest of your questions coming up next. All right, we are back. It is our final segment of the Friday mailbag. Remember, like I said, at LO_Canadiens, if you want to tweet us your questions, LockedOnCanadiens@gmail, YouTube comments, Instagram DMs, whatever. We are always game. Laura, what do we have left?
Our friend Logan. I live near Orlando and plan to go to a Trois-Rivières versus Solar Bears game. Any Habs prospects I should look out for? Also, I'm trying to understand the different leagues in terms of level of play and place in player development.
So I couldn't tell you who's going to be on the Lions this year just because I don't know what the team looks like, to be quite fair with you. And I don't want to tell you this player will be there and then they're not.
Or they're in Laval.
Exactly. Like, it's a very influx situation. In terms of how things go, I'm going to start from where players usually get drafted out of in North America, because I believe that's where you're most interested in learning about. You have the CHL, which is the Ontario Hockey League, the Western Hockey League, and the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, the 3 leagues that make up that. They are drafted. They usually go to the AHL, which is the step below the NHL, And then the ECHL, which is usually some AHLers, some prospects. If you're in a situation like Toronto where you have a ton of prospects at different levels, and we've talked about it a lot on this show, you also have players that come out of like the BCHL or the AJHL, the OJHL, which are a step below the CHL levels, who usually go on to play in college, the NCAA, or out of the USHL where they go into college. From there, those are junior leagues there. In terms of development, the ECHL generally hasn't been a development league in the past. It's been just kind of a feeder league for the AHL, where some teams usually let their prospects go. And it's changing more and more rapidly now that more teams are getting more picks, more prospects, there's more players. They put some of their guys there to make sure they're ready to go, and then they bring them up to the AHL and so forth. We were happy to elaborate on this further if you have any more questions. We could talk about this for the rest of the episode, but we have so many other things to get there. I want to make sure we are able to answer other questions as well.
Also, like, I think closer to when the actual season start, we'll know what the Trois-Rivières roster looks like, and then we'll know which Habs players are being played in the ECHL and who to look out for. So we will hit you back at the beginning of the actual season. Randy Hansen, our old friend, can you see a way for the Habs to trade Price to Nashville? I assume he'll be ready to go in September.
No. I don't think, now that Nashville just signed Niederreiter and they have UC Saros, I can't see them trading Carey to Nashville. I truly think if he's going anywhere, it's going to be Seattle or somehow Vancouver. Don't ask me how it's going to work, but I think they're going to move closer to both where he and Angela are from, just to kind of ride out the end of his career there, if that's going to be the case. Depending on if a team wants to chase a cup and wants to trade for him, that might change things, but I think they're going back out west above anything else.
If they move. He's got a literal no movement clause. And then Randy has another question. Should the NHL follow the MLB and the NFL in having a month of breast cancer pink highlighted uniforms during games? Visibility is important, and so it has to be during the game. So now traditionally the NHL does all of their stuff in warm-ups, and they will wear ribbons on the helmets and things like that, but they haven't really done anything particularly visible. I can't even think of a time when they've worn like pink socks.
No, they do purple for Hockey Fights Cancer and everything, and that's across all the leagues, I believe. This is not a new thing, is that I do wish that alternate jerseys, like the ones they wore to honor First Nations tribes across Canada, the Canucks in particular had very strong Heritage Night jerseys that I think they should be able to wear during games. If you're paying homage to something during one of the months, let them wear them during the game. Who cares? It's exciting and different, and that's something the NHL doesn't do. The AHL does, all over the place. They have, and the ECHL too, they have so many alternate jerseys for various nights, for charity and just for fun, that I think the NHL should jump on that, not make it a full-time regular thing, but wear the Hockey Fights Cancer jerseys during games. Let them do that more than just, like you said, a sticker on the helmet and hockey tape. Actually make a definitive statement. If your sponsors don't care, if your sponsors are mad that they were wearing a Hockey Fights Cancer jersey, then you drop that sponsor, quite frankly, because there are things more important than having a MasterCard ad on your jersey or something like that, unfortunately. So
Randy Hansen also wants to know, what city do you think will host the draft next? So we've been waiting for this announcement, and there have been 3 rumored cities right now.
Nashville.
Scott, Nashville's going to be the one, right?
I think it's going to be Nashville. I don't think I'll be able to travel for that one, just because I will not make it back from Nashville. I will die in a pile of hot chicken, which there are worse ways to go, I guess. But Nashville will be a good time. I thought Vegas was rumored too in there.
I think they have the All-Star game though. So
it was God.
So that's one of the reasons why it came up. And then St. Louis. And then here's the thing, Scott, I think we have to go to Nashville. I've covered the All-Star game in Nashville before. It's going to be hot as all hell, but Nashville is one of the most fun cities in the world, and if we're going to be covering the draft, I do not want to do that without you. All right, a question from Dylan.
So much chicken. So
be
much
so
hot
good.
Oh no, I'm gonna have to eat really hot chicken because food dares. And anyways, that's besides the point.
All right. We still got plenty of questions that we got to get through. Dylan asks us, do you think there's a market at all for Joel Armia with that cap hit and term left?
Yes, I think they might have to retain on him a little bit, despite Kent Hughes insisting they won't. A big possession winger who can play bottom six, top six with flexibility. I think I keep going back to Calgary, but it feels bad, but they're
They
gonna
have
have
no forwards left.
they're gonna have the cap space for it. So I think there's a market out there for a player like Joel Armia, just maybe not a hyped up market, but I think there is a market for a player of his type.
And then Pinard88 asks us, who do you think are the candidates, or who would you like to see replace Luke Richardson?
This I really haven't had a chance to do as much research on as I would have liked, just because it's tough because coaches could come out of nowhere. Martin St. Louis was coaching, minor hockey in Vermont when he got hired to coach the Montreal Canadiens. It can come out of nowhere, and I don't think they're going to promote anyone from the AHL right now. I wouldn't be shocked if Marty has someone in mind and they're waiting, a little bit for summer to kind of die down to give someone, whoever it is, a little bit of time to relax. I'm not going to be shocked if it's a former teammate, though.
Dan Boyle. I mean, the three of them were the three, they were buddies when they won the cup, right? Vinny, Marty, and Dan Boyle. That's who I think it's going to be. That's my guess. That's actually, I'm going to put money on it, unless Dan Boyle is doing something completely different that he doesn't want to have anything to do with this, because I feel like I heard he was in maybe the Sharks organization. I can't remember. Either way, he's probably the person that trio is going to call. We've got a few more questions, but these ones are the off the rails questions. I will start with Jeff the Red. Other than hockey, what sport do you most enjoy watching live? Mine is basketball because it is really cool. Scott, I'm just going to go ahead and assume, if we're not counting wrestling, it is soccer.
I've never actually seen a live soccer match in person before, and that's what I assume he meant by live. If not, I do love soccer, and football is always good background / napping noise. So, but yeah, soccer would probably be the right bet for that.
In an alternate universe where the Montreal Canadiens don't exist, what would be your favorite NHL team, and what team do you think would have the most Stanley Cups? Easy, Detroit and Detroit.
I liked watching the Avs in the 2000s, but given where I live, I probably would have ended up being a Sabres fan at this point, and I assume more than likely it would have been Detroit or somehow Philadelphia, because the Habs dynasty wouldn't have derailed the Broad Street Bullies in the 70s, unfortunately. So,
if you could design a third jersey for the Habs from scratch, what would it look like?
Something Expos themed. That powder blue Expos jersey that we've seen mocked up a lot, I think would be a really hot seller in Montreal. I think that's where you go. If you're going to have to do blue, you can't do dark blue again. You can't do it. And unless they're going with an old school throwback like the Centennials, I think that powder blue Expos color jersey would be a really smart way to do it.
Outfit recommendations for an 80s themed party.
Well, I wasn't alive in the 80s, and I'm going to say this as delicately as possible. Laura, how would he dress himself for an 80s party?
I knew this was coming. The only outfits that I could think of were the neon, the neon unitards with the bike shorts in either a similar or contrasting color. I'm trying to figure out if that was early 90s or 80s, if that qualifies as 80s, because again, I was very young. I know you're we're trying. I was
also
young in the
acid
80s,
wash, acid wash denim. I'm pretty sure was an 80s thing like that.
Mom
and then just
jeans.
get a t-shirt that has I don't want to say pastel, but bright neon colors in font to wear underneath acid wash denim and everything. Bleach dye your hair and go for it. Go all for it. So
yeah, and you have to knot your t-shirt at the side. All right, there's 3 more questions. One of them is from our nemesis. Here's my mailbag question. It's a fun one. This is from Tyler. It's not from our nemesis. It's a fun one, and hopefully you guys use it. If Anakin Skywalker was a hockey player and he got drafted first overall, but then had his duel before Obi-Wan before training camp in his draft year, and had his limbs cut off and ended up with half the power level he would have had if he was Anakin, if Anakin at full power would have scored 125 points a season, but now Vader now scores 70 points a season, does that make Darth Vader a bust? I'm a little bit worried about the actual metaphor in this one. Hopefully nobody chops off Slavkovsky's limbs.
I think getting a 70-point forward is still very good. And the thing is, he just plays a different role. He's not as mobile, but he still puts up points consistently and is still terrifying to play against. Like, you look at Darth Vader in Rogue One, that's a scary, scary dude who knows how to mess people up. Yeah, he doesn't have the agility that Anakin had because literally all of his limbs were cut off because, hey, stupid, he has the high ground. I don't know how to better explain physics to you, but you can't do that. I don't think he's a bust. I think he's playing a different role on the team now, and you need to go find something to supplement that, like a Darth Maul or something to help make up the production that he would have lost by losing his limbs.
Okay. I'm just going to agree with you because I haven't started my Star Wars journey yet. Nobody yell at me. It is coming. And at the same time, I want to shout out Mike Obrand, one of our favorite people who's also a guest on the show, and we want to bring him back ASAP. His question was just PLD. We've already covered that, so I'm going to move on to Victor Maxwell's question, mailbag question. International ice cream competition. 3 flavors to make the ultimate ice cream cone. Go.
Chocolate chip cookie dough.
Mm-hmm.
Rocky Road.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to cheat a little bit because there's one from a place called Lake Effect Ice Cream here that was a bourbon caramel crunch. And it was phenomenal. And it was great. And that would be my base layer, then Rocky Road, then cookie dough on top.
Okay. I'm going with my base layer would be I think it's like chocolate mousse royale. It's the Baskin Robbins flavor with the little chocolate bits in it. And then on top of that, I would put New York Super Fudge Chunk from Ben & Jerry's. And then on top of that, I would put this salted caramel gelato that they have from this place called Quelly in Montreal. It used to be Paysanne, now it's called Quelly. And that will be my 3 flavors. You've got actually 2 questions for my nemesis. The first one I had to research. How do they test sunscreen? Is there a giant compound in the desert with a bunch of pale kidnapping victims being experimented on? And then I like how JJ from Kansas was like, are you looking to get recruited? And Will says he'd at least hear their offer. Here's the thing. So I looked this up. They do test for UVB on actual human beings. You volunteer, and you will wear the sunscreen and be exposed to UVB rays. But UVA is far more dangerous, and that is actually unethical to test on human beings. So you don't do that. They try to replicate the results in a lab, and then there's a certain result that they have to find in order to certify the sunscreen SPF whatever. So that is the answer to your question, is no, they're not kidnapping people and roasting them with UVA rays. And then our final question comes from our nemesis, and it was an interesting question. What's an innocuous milquetoast statement someone could say that would immediately make you hate that person on a deep primordial level for no explainable reason?
So I've had people that I don't know when I've been at work, because I, for one, to the shock of no one, love energy drinks. And that is part of my thing in the morning. And I always get one before our morning meeting. And I sip on that throughout the morning to get me through, the early part of the day, and I'm good for the rest of the day. And then I drink water, whatever. And there was a new person who was cashing out one day in our cafe area and went, "This stuff's basically poison." Scans it and walks away. And I'm like, I didn't ask for this input on what I am trying to drink in the morning. Please just ask if I want a receipt. I didn't need an opinion or input on what I am drinking first thing in the morning, unless I was buying a beer, in which case then please check in to make sure everything is okay. Any kind of comment about what you're having for breakfast or for lunch or what you're getting to drink that was not asked for is a very good way to get on my bad side, especially early in the morning.
Yeah, I think for me, it's anybody who voluntarily, without me asking, tells me about their diet. I think that's, whatever your dietary restrictions, beliefs, philosophies, or whatever are, that's your body. It's not mine. So immediately I'll get a visceral reaction. I'll just hate that person. Even if you just be what's worked for me lately or something like that, I do not
Nope.
want to hear
Don't want to know.
anything.
No, thank you.
Yes, exactly. That is how it is. And so that is the end of our mailbag this week.
Cool. As always, folks, if you want to send us questions at LO_Canadians, LockedOnCanadians@gmail.com, in the YouTube comments, etc. Smoke signal, carrier pigeon, coyote strapped to a big Acme rocket that you just launch into one of our cities at some point. We'll figure it out. If you want to follow Laura, she is at The Active Stick. I'm at Scott Matla. Make sure you subscribed on YouTube as we head into our off season. We have so much more content coming up for you, so please stay tuned, and we will see you all next time.